did. I said don't touch it. No! Please move.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على السلام حي على السلام حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. My brothers and my sisters, Allah has created man so that we worship Him. And when He created mankind, He knew some of us are going to excel. Ibn Masud anhu narrates in Musnad Imam Ahmad, Allah looked into the hearts of man, and from the best of hearts that He found was the heart of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And then the best heart that He found were the companions around the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Allah made the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam His ambassadors, so they can carry on His message and so that they can support him while he was alive. My brothers and my sisters, today this world is looking for a hero. This world is looking for a solution. This world is looking for a role model to solve their problems. People are looking for resolution for their differences. People are looking to establish human rights. The salvation has already come in the following. The way of the Salaf of this Ummah, and from the heads of the Salaf were the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, and the one that stands out from them, a role model from amongst them, a role model from amongst them, one of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, Bilal ibn Rabah radiallahu anhu, this man of extreme strength in his iman. This was a man of sacrifice. This is a man of strength. But with the Quraysh, he was somebody who was just a lowly slave, somebody who has no rights. He had no freedom. He was someone else's property. And not only was he property, but he was a slave of one of the worst people that lived amongst the Quraysh, Umayyah bin Khalaf. Umayyah bin Khalaf was somebody known to be arrogant, someone who was known to abuse others, let alone his own slaves, someone whose conduct and manners and behavior was always improper. But Bilal was free. The Umayyad didn't realize why was Bilal free. Once the Quraysh were sitting and they were gathered and they were discussing the call of this new man, this new call of this man, and they were worried. They said, this man, he's going to take our power. This man, he is going to take our money. This man, he is going to take the religion of our forefathers away. When Bilal heard about this man and his call, he knew this call was the call of Tawheed. He knew this call was the call of justice, and that we are all one in front of Allah. Nobody has the right to enslave another. Allah says in the Quran, all of you are the same, except those who excel with Allah. Those people have taqwa. So Bilal wanted to meet this man, wanted but so Bilal wanted to meet this man. What is his call? I'm very interested. Who is this man who is threatening the power and injustice of Quraysh? Who is this man who is calling to slavery to Allah, not slavery to the creation? Allah says, have you not seen those people within Quraysh? All they want to do is worship their own desires. They want to worship their own power. They want to worship their own ego. Ibn Taymiyyah says about this ayah. He said those people who worship their own desires and their own whims are the people who are attached to other than Allah. They are attaching themselves to the creation. And when you attach yourself to the creation, you are always dependent on the creation. If you revive your whims, if you fulfill your desires, you'll become happy. But if you don't revive your whims, you don't receive your desires, you become agitated, you become angry, you become ungrateful. Because in reality, this person is enslaved to the creation. But for this believer, even if his body is imprisoned, his heart remains connected to Allah, his Creator. His heart remains connected to the hereafter, and he knows that this dunya is a land of being tested and trials. Sometimes you will have something which makes you happy, and sometimes you will have something that will test you. And the believer realizes this. Bilal, from the very beginning of this call of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, knew this. Look at the intelligence of this man. So he met Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a place known as Bayt al-Arqam, a secret hideout. When he saw this man, he said, this man is a man of peace. This man is a man of justice. This man is a man of iman and piety. But perhaps, most of all, what you get from this man, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is assurance. Assurance that we will be successful, that the truth will prevail, and that there is full yaqeen that we are going to die in this dunya and there is going to be a hereafter. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he met Bilal ibn Rabah radiallahu anhu, he did not need to convince him, at all. Ibn Masud radiallahu anhu said the first people to accept Islam was seven. No convincing, no debate, no argument. They accepted it straight. And from them was Bilal ibn Rabah. And Ibn Masud continues describing Bilal, and he said once Bilal accepted Islam, he didn't care what would happen to himself. He didn't care what would happen to his reputation. He didn't care what people would say about him. The main thing he wanted was to worship Allah and be upon the right path, upon Tawheed, because he knew that this was the success where everything lies. So he proclaimed his Islam, and he said, his Shahada extremely brave. The Quraysh, amongst the Quraysh, he had no one to protect him. He was from the lowest of low of society, and the Quraysh used to ridicule him and torture him and mock him to the extent that they used to send their children to surround Bilal and insult him, to surround Bilal and mock him. But he was not deterred. His call was Ahadun Ahad. My Lord is one. My Lord is one. He didn't care what happened to him. He was not bothered whether he would die or whether he would remain alive as long as he was upon the way of Tawheed and Iman. This meant, as his life continued, he was going to be ridiculed. He was going to become even lower in society than he was before he was a Muslim. He was the subject to racism. He had no protection in a very, very savage society. My brothers and my sisters, the days outside right now are hot. It's 80, 90 degrees some days, and some of us complain. Makkah reaches above 120 degrees and even higher in the summer. They used to strip this man naked. They used to take him out of the city. He doesn't know what's going to happen to him. He doesn't know whether he's going to die, whether they're going to kill him, or if they're just going to leave him there abandoned. They used to make him lie in the hot sand, and men were needed to carry a huge rock. Not just one man, multiple men needed to carry this rock to place on top of the body of Bilal. This is what he went through. Despite all of this, he was firm, and he was like a believer that Allah describes in the house of Pharaoh. But if we look at the rest of the ayah, we see that Bilal was even braver. Within the house of Pharaoh, there was a believer. He concealed his iman in front of Pharaoh. He didn't want Pharaoh to know he was a believer in Musa alayhi salam. Bilal was brave within the house of tyranny. He said, La ilaha illallah. And he said, are you going to fight a man who just says your Lord is one? That's what his call was. That's what he was concerned about, having ikhlas with Allah. He was told to remain quiet. They said, look what they're doing to you. They're going to die. But he refused. He said, I will remain firm upon saying Ahadun Ahad. And this became the slogan of peace and the slogan of truth. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah. My brothers and my sisters, every single one of us here have some level of concern about what is happening in places like Palestine, India, Syria, other places in the Muslim Ummah. When we watch the news, it affects us. We try to help. But my question to you today, my brothers and sisters, this man, one man, was firm. Look at the effects that Iman had upon this man's heart and actions. So imagine if we collectively held on to Ahadul Ahad, if we collectively supported the Prophet ﷺ in his sunnah, in loving him, and if we follow him, if we collectively seek the correct way to remove oppression, what would happen to this ummah? He was told to follow the trend of society, leave the call of Muhammad, follow the trend of society, enslave yourself in desires and addictions that you find within Quraysh. But he refused. because he knew success had to begin with Iman from within. Allah says in the Quran, Allah will not change your situation until you initiate that change from yourself. My brothers and sisters, is from the sunnah of Allah that He will reward deeds according to their actions. Allah says in the Quran that all deeds will have a substitute recompense for it. Bilal ibn Rabah anhu said ahadun ahad in times of difficulty. In times of ease, he was the one chosen by the Prophet ﷺ to proclaim La ilaha illallah. Look what Umar anhu said about Bilal, narrated in Sahih al-Bukhari. He said, Abu Bakr is our master. There is no one better from this ummah than Abu Bakr. And he is the one who freed our master, Bilal ibn Rabah. Look at the level of respect Umar had for Bilal. Look how he recognized the achievements of Bilal. Look at how he praised him for his drive and his spirit. This is Umar, Amir al-Mu'mineen, saying this about Bilal. My brothers, my sisters, when the Prophet ﷺ was driven out of Mecca, he only had a few hundred people with him. 6 years later, he returned to Mecca in the Treaty of Hudaybiyah to perform Umrah. When he returned that 6 years later, he had 1,400 companions with him. Islam had grown. 8 years after the Hijrah, the Prophet ﷺ had returned to Mecca to liberate Mecca from shirk. When he came to Mecca 8 years after the Hijrah, he had 10,000 people with him. In 8 years, a lot had changed in the state of the Ummah. This teaches us after hardship, after persecution, after torture, there is relief. But the relief can only come if we have men like Bilal ibn Rabah within the Ummah. There was only one man that was chosen by the Prophet ﷺ to stand and proclaim Tawheed on that day in front of 10,000 people. Yesterday, some of these people were this man's enemy. They were the enemy to the Muslims. Yesterday, they were enemies. Now, some people had come into Makkah and they accepted Islam. This man is standing in front of people who used to torture him. And now these people had come to Islam today. He climbed on top of the Kaaba. The Prophet ﷺ only chose this one man, and he was Bilal ibn Rabah. He stood in front of the Muslim Ummah on that day in Allah's sacred land, on top of Allah's house that He had designated to be a Qibla. The house that Bilal stood on was built by Ibrahim, our father. He was chosen by the final prophet and messenger to stand in front of the whole of the Ummah on top of the Kaaba in the best place to say, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. The first adhan after the idols had been destroyed in Mecca. And Mecca was liberated. But soon after this, the Prophet ﷺ passed away. Imam al-Dhahabi recalls that Abu Bakr anhu wanted Bilal to carry on being the mu'adhin in the Prophet's masjid. So Bilal initially said yes. And when he began to make the adhan, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, only when he got to Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, he couldn't continue. And you can imagine every time Bilal made that adhan, he would be reminded of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it was hard for him. So much so that he couldn't even say in Mecca or Medina because he was reminded of the Prophet so much. But Abu Bakr fled. We are requesting you, you are the mu'adhin of Rasulullah. We need to carry on making the adhan. Bilal said, Ya Abu Bakr, if you freed me for the sake of Allah, then let me leave Medina. This is my only request from you. So he left and he resided in Sham. No one was connected to him anymore. He wanted to be isolated, but soon after, Umar anhu liberated Masjid al-Aqsa and he liberated Sham, which was the blessed land that the Prophet ﷺ made dua for. At the time when he was alive, it was not a Muslim land. Umar liberated it. But now they need to make an adhan. Umar anhu requested from Bilal, would you please make the adhan for the very first time? Bilal said yes. And it was a place called Jabiyah. Imam al-Dhahabi said, never had Jabiyah witnessed so many men crying in one particular occasion. He says the reason why they were crying was when Bilal started to make the adhan, the companions that were there with Umar and the Tabi'een that came after realized this was the adhan that the Prophet ﷺ heard. This was the mu'adhin of the Prophet ﷺ that he had appointed. This is the influence of a slave from East Africa. This is the influence of someone who was low, who had nothing from the dunya. This is the influence of a man who was tortured day and night just because he said La ilaha illallah. This was a man who stood in the front saf behind Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. This was a man who used to come early to Masjid al-Nabawi and make the adhan for the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The Prophet said, give us relaxation through your adhan, Ya Bilal. Bilal was a man of worship. He was a mu'adhin of Rasulullah, and the world will never see one like him again. This man is a man of Jannah. The Prophet ﷺ said that he heard the footsteps of Bilal in Jannah. This is a story and some reflections of the life of Bilal. Don't let it pass by and be something entertaining. Because Allah tells us these are the people that treaded this earth and they are gone. Where are you going? What are your actions going to be? What is the legacy that you will leave behind? أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. ربنا إنا آمنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وقنا عذاب النار. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء. Wallah, please forgive us for all the bad that we have done and that we continuously do. You are the all merciful and all kind. Please forgive us and help us stay away from all that is wrong. O Allah, allow us to worship you the way you are meant to be worshipped and fulfill the rights of our parents. O Allah, unite this ummah. Not let us be divided amongst ourselves. Make every single aspect be to your worship and to serving your creation, and remove all false intentions that we may have and replace them with good ones. Wa aqimus salah.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
الله أكبر.
الله.
الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى والذي قدر فهدى والذي أخرج المرعى فجعله غثاء أحوى سنقرئك فلا تنسى إلا ما شاء الله إنه يعلم الجهر وما يخفى ونيسرك لليسرى فذكر إن نفعت الذكرى سيذكر من يخشى ويتجنبها الأشقى الذي يصلى النار الكبرى ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. هل عتاك حديث الغاشية وجوه يومئذ خاشية آمنة ناصبة تصلى نارا هامية تسقى من عين آنية ليس لهم طعام إلا من ضريع لا يسمن ولا يغني من جوع وجوه يومئذ ناعمة لسعيها راضية في جنات عالية لا تسمع فيها لاغية فيها عين جارية فيها سرر مرفوعة وأكواب موضوعة ونمارق مصفوفة وزرابي مبثوثة أفلا ينظرون إلى الإبل كيف خلقت وإلى السماء كيف رفعت وإلى الجبال كيف نصبت وإلى الأرض كيف سطحت فذكر إنما أنت مذكر لست عليهم بمسيطر إلا من تولى وكفر فيعذبه الله العذاب الأكبر إن إلينا إيابهم ثم إن علينا حسابهم. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.